Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Fabric UK user group. I'm your host, Pragati Jain, and today I'm very happy to announce our speaker for the day, which is Leon Gordon himself. And today he's going to talk about a very important topic that I'm really keen to know what he's going to show us today. He's going to talk on who's really in control, monitoring and governing Microsoft Fabric the smart way. A little bit of introduction about Leon. Leon is a leader in data analytics. He's a current thought leader at the Forbes Technical Council, an executive contributor to Brains magazine, a thought leader in data science for the Global AI Hub, a Microsoft data platform MVP based in UK, and the founder of ONX Data. So, Leon, I will welcome you. Hi,
Yeah,
Leon. How are you?
fantastic. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. It's so weird to ask him as a speaker. How is he?
It's very strange for me as well to be on the opposite side of the table.
Yeah, definitely. And I think before Leon starts, I would like everyone to, just put in the comment from which part of the world you're joining us. So, we all know from where you all are coming from. And thank you so much for joining us. So, Leon, without waiting any further, I would hand over the stage to you. So, good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. As Pragati mentioned, it will be great to know whereabouts in the world you're joining us from. Are you currently using Fabric? And then as we go through today's session, I want this to be as interactive as possible. So please just feel free to ask any questions throughout. And Pragati, as they come in, please just let me know. I'm happy to stop if needed. Okay. So with that in mind, let's take a look at who's really in control, monitoring and governing even Microsoft Fabric and Power BI the smart way. Okay. So with that in mind, Pragati gave me an amazing introduction. Most of you should already know me unless it's your first time joining. So Leon Gordon here, CEO and founder of Onyx Data, and also sometimes the host of the Fabric UK user group as well. If you'd like to connect with me, please feel free to do so, but I won't labour the introductions anymore. So with that in mind, those of you that have been using Fabric in anger over the past couple of years or so, for myself, having worked with enterprise clients on Microsoft Fabric and data analytics and artificial intelligence solutions over the past few years, there typically is three governance gaps that I see organizations face on a quite a regular basis. The first being unforeseen or ballooning costs. Typically for organizations, it's very difficult for them to be able to see sometimes even the cost per workspace or workload within Fabric. Now, when this isn't governed, especially in enterprise organizations, the costs can start to get really out of control, especially if you don't introduce any accountability. Now, some of this I fully agree. If you are working on reserved instances and potentially some Microsoft discounts, and again, depending on which region you are, some of these can be overcome. But typically, the large majority of customers that I work with tend to be quite blind to these costs until they actually receive the invoice from Microsoft. Outside of that, as organizations grow in the wild, Fabric is still quite similar to Power BI in the fact that when you give organizations access to these tools, people see it, they want to use it. And from a Power BI perspective, you start to get reports built out in the wild, semantic models built out in the wild. And it's the same as you start to grow up into Fabric. Now, typically, there isn't often a clear ownership and clear ability to start to be able to monitor data refreshes. And this gets even worse as you start to add in multiple capacities, multiple regions, etc. And all of this comes together to build a fragile data estate as opposed to that strong foundation that most organizations want. And outside of that, we can take a look at FinOps, for example, how we can ensure that if we do need to do any chargeback to different departments and organizations, we're able to do so within Microsoft Fabric. And also, how do you then start to govern and ensure that there is compliance across your data estate? As I mentioned, as you start to scale from those multiple reports, multiple semantic models, multiple domains, and then also into multiple capacities as well. So how do you ensure you have risk and compliance handled? Now, I'll be the first to admit that Microsoft provides some out-of-the-box solutions. There's also a plethora of open source solutions available, some of which actually come from some of the Microsoft employees themselves. And this list grows on a day-by-day basis. So this list is by no means in today's day and age fully comprehensive, but I've tried to capture the vast majority of popular ones here. The first being Purview, Purview really being for that master data management across your data estate, ensuring data quality, building out your data catalog, for example, ensuring that you have DLP, so data loss prevention, in place as well. Now, one of the downsides, whilst it is the most comprehensive solution from Microsoft from that perspective, in the wild, it can tend to get quite expensive quite quickly, and it's not a native to Fabric solution. It's something that has to be integrated, albeit in the Microsoft ecosystem, with Fabric. Outside of that, if I just go left to right, we then have FUAM. Now, FUAM is an open source solution that really starts to bridge the gap between built-in native solutions within Fabric and then some of those more rich features that are required from a governance and monitoring perspective within the Microsoft ecosystem. Outside of that, we have another open source solution which really shines a light on Fabric cost analysis, and this is FCA, doing what it says in the tin, Fabric cost analysis. And again, this is an open source solution that's available today. Built in, most of you will be familiar with the capacity metrics app. And then also for some of our more advanced users, we also have Azure Log Analytics as well, which can capture some of that intuitive information we want from Fabric as well. Now, even though we do have access to all of these solutions on the market, each of them come with their trade-offs. I already mentioned from a Purview perspective, it takes another skill set to master, another tool to master, and can become quite expensive over time. FUAM and FCA, again, whilst great solutions in their own right, they aren't fully comprehensive in the fact that you are accessing what's going on in your Fabric environment as opposed to what actions you need to take to resolve your Fabric environment. And they also come with a bit of a technical hurdle in having the ability to be able to export or grab the repository that holds these solutions and then go through the technical setup in behind it. The capacity metrics app, most organizations and developers that I speak to out in the wild say they need to be a data scientist to actually understand what's happening in their environment from time to time. So whilst it's a fantastic solution out of the box, interpretation of what's actually happening can be quite difficult. And again, there's some gaps in regards to the information that's available there as well. And Azure Log Analytics, as I mentioned before, whilst a good solution, again, comes with an additional layer of complexity to be able to understand. So with that in mind, as I mentioned before, these tools are very powerful, but they're not prescriptive. And what myself and the team at Onyx Data were able to observe in some of our enterprise Fabric implementations is that what was really needed is a tool or an intelligence layer that really scores maturity across your estate, shining a holistic light across your whole environment, and also builds in recommendations on actually how to take action to provide more value and to solve some of the issues that you may be seeing in your organization, which then provides instant risk remediation as well. Now, with that in mind, we built a tool which is known as FabOps, okay? And that's going to be the vast majority of the remainder of today's session. I'll walk you through what FabOps looks like, how we feel it enhances your monitoring, governance, and cost optimization capabilities within Microsoft Fabric, and gives you the actionable intelligence that both developers, management, and your executives need to be proactive in governance and cost optimization. If we have time, there's going to be a plethora to get through in today's session, so I'll try my best. But there will be some key areas that I may just have to show you some screenshots of. So just bear with me today. Hopefully that's going to be okay. And what I will do is dive straight into our demo. Pragati, as I mentioned before, please feel free to just prompt me, as I won't have any eyes on chat as part of today's session.
Yeah, definitely, Leon. If anything comes through, I'll definitely, interrupt you. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So what you should now be seeing is our FabOps environment. So if that's the case, then let me just go through this in a bit of detail. And I'm going to change this to dark mode if it's okay, because I'm slightly blinded at the moment by the lightness. So hopefully you can see my screen. So what you're looking at is our FabOps solution, currently working in our development environment. So we have code being shipped in and out of this all of the time. So hopefully demo gods will be kind to me today. Now, I'll just go ahead and zoom in a little bit as well. Now, what you're looking at the top here, as I mentioned previously, is an overall scoring system across your whole Fabric estate. So if you have multiple capacities, maybe an F8, an F16, or if you're at the larger end and you have multiple F256s, F128s, for example, this scoring is built up across all of those capacities, all of those semantic models, those domains, reports, etc. Okay, and what we do is we actually grade you on 8 different categories. So governance, data quality, cost efficiency, collaboration, modernization, optimization, performance, and security. Now you'll see that each of these categories has a score out of 100. And we also provide you with some key insight into what's causing this score, whether it's lagging or whether it's optimal, and potentially if you're at risk, for example. Now, each of these scores then is combined to give you an overall FabOps score. Okay, so you'll see here, for example, we're currently scoring 50.7 out of 100. Okay, now for each of these, you can just go ahead and click directly into the tile. And what you'll be greeted with is just an overview of how you can start to improve this score, what your target score should be. Again, and then a bit of a breakdown in regards to, for this particular environment, the collaboration metrics, how many users we have, how many items have been created by users, and for this particular scenario, who are the top contributors as well. Okay. Now, in the experience so far of organizations that are using FabOps, there may be some particular industries where they don't really care about collaboration and they have more of an emphasis on data quality, for example. So what you can do, and as I go into the back end a little bit later, you can actually customize how your score is calculated. So for example, you'll see here that governance is actually weighted to be 18% of the overall score calculation, and performance is currently 16%, for example. Okay. So in the back end, you can change these weightings, and you can also turn certain categories off if they're not required by your organization. And if we get time, I'll go through that in a bit more detail. You also get an overview of how each of these categories is scored, and then you also get the calculation formula as well beneath. Okay. Now, what we found is that just gives you, again, at a glance, a great overview in regards to how your estate is performing on each of these categories. And you can also, and I'll get into this a little bit later, you might decide, well, actually, Leon, we have production environments, we have a UAT or test environment, and we have a dev environment. And we don't really want to score our dev and test environments. We're only interested in production, for example. But what you can do under the hood is, again, just categorize which workspaces you would like and start to group those into segments. And then once you click through, so for example, if I was to go on to FabOps, which has just 11 workspaces, the score would then be recalculated and updated to only show your overall scores for each of these groups, as opposed to all of the workspaces in this environment. Now, as I mentioned, there's going to be a huge amount of information I'm going to try and get through today. So please do bear with me. If there's anything you'd like to see in more detail, then please just feel free to let me know. Now, as I mentioned, we really start to go from that top-down approach. Okay, so we've looked across our whole estate, seen how we're scoring. Now let's have a look at our active workspaces, for example, semantic models, reports, fabric apps, and active users. Okay. Now, what you'll see here is that if we have any trending happening over time, so for example, if we've seen an increase like we have here in workspaces being created, so currently we've had 2.9% increase in workspaces, that will be shown here, and similarly for semantic models, etc. So this gives you, again, at a glance, some quick understanding in regards to what's happening in your environment. Now, for each of these, you can go in and click View Details, where you'll be greeted with a splash screen, which provides you more insight into your environment. So we're just looking at workspaces here. We can see that across all of the workspaces, regardless of which capacity it's on, this is a holistic view across your whole estate. We have an overall average health score of 22.4. Okay, we have 106 workspaces, 106 of which are active. Only 15 have Git integration, and 23 are currently allocated to a domain. Now, this gives us a red, amber, green scoring. Okay, green being excellent health, amber being good health. And if you have workspaces which need attention, like we have 100% of our workspaces that require attention, you can see that very, very quickly within FabOps. Now, as I mentioned to you before, that's great. It's really good prescriptive information. But what do we do with this information? Well, FabOps has actually been trained on the expertise of myself and our colleagues here at Onyx Data and our years of experience within the industry. And we actually start to surface AI-powered recommendations that you can start to take action with. So, for example, we are able to identify that we have lots of underutilized workspaces in our environment, and the recommended action could be to consolidate those. We have lots of governance gaps, again, in our environment, and we have lots of performance issues that we need to take some action on. Okay? And we're provided the recommended action beneath each of these. Then we go into a bit more of a tabular view. So what this shows you is what's happening with all of your workspaces. So you get the workspace name, which capacity it's assigned to, the overall health score out of 100, whether it's active or inactive, the amount of items that exist on that workspace. So if I just go ahead and click the eye icon, we can then start to see all of those items. And if we wanted to, we could just be taken directly over to Power BI to that workspace environment as well. I'll just go back to FabOps and just come out of this splash screen. We also can see how many users have access to the workspace. If you do have refreshes going on, you'll be able to see the refresh rate here. You can also then see whether this is attributed to a domain or not. And then again, if you wanted to go ahead and view, you could click this item, which would take you directly to the workspace again. We also provide you tips for each of these workspaces. So clicking this icon here will provide you a recommendation that you need to go away and enable Git integration, which is quite a high priority based on the rules that we have set. As you would expect with most tabular data, you can export this to CSV if you would like to, and then you can also categorize. So if we just wanted to look at top performing workspaces, unfortunately, we have none in this demo, so that's why none are being shown. If we wanted to see those that need attention, we can go ahead and select that button. And if we wanted to see them by domain, again, we could go and see the domains that we have and exist in this environment, and you'd be able to see the coverage that we have as well. Okay. Now, this is the case for semantic models as well. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because, like I said, there's a huge amount of information to get through in the remainder of this session. But one element I will call out is that we have best practice analyzer, which is being run across your whole estate in an automated fashion. So it's not one semantic model, one report. It's being run across your whole estate, regardless if you have singular or multiple capacities, and you're able to understand whether you're adhering to those best practice rules or whether, like you can see here, we have 169,000 issues identified in this environment. Okay. Again, familiar key insights and recommendations provided from a semantic model perspective, and then that now familiar tabular view providing you with the information as well on those semantic models. Okay. Again, I try not to labor the point. We have the same for reports. One of interest is generally around the active users. Okay, so by going into your active users, you can start to get an overview and some insight into, out of all of the users that you have, how many of those are active within the last 30 days, how many items you have created. You can then start to see buckets of user engagement in your environment. Again, we provide you key insights and recommendations. So we need to review and potentially remove access for our inactive users. And we also have some overprivileged users here that we need to do some cleanup on as well. Okay. Again, we now get a tabular view where we can see each of these users, the type of permissions they have, what they've created and what they have access to, the amount of shares and their activity score as well. Okay. And again, you can just go through these groupings to see admins, inactive users, etc., etc., etc. Now, I wasn't joking when I said that we provide you with a huge amount of information here. So I'm not going to go into each of these, but we do give you some information on your platform health, refresh performance, also capacity utilization, how for the modern features within Fabric, and I'll go into this in a bit more detail as we go through today's session, how they're being adopted across your organization. But the key ones I wanted to point out to you is the compliance and recommendations with best practice analysis. Okay. So at a glance here, you can see that we have some governance issues, some storage issues, some compute issues, some identity issues, some cost issues, some networking issues, and some security issues. Now, if we go into that in a bit more detail, we can see that in our environment, we have an 89.8% compliance rate. But we have a huge amount of errors, we have a huge amount of warnings, and we have an even larger amount of informational issues being flagged up as well. Okay. We see that this is currently affecting 13 models in our environment, and we can see that they are relating to DAX expressions, formatting, maintenance, and performance, some of which could be having an effect on your CU consumption within your environment. We then give you some insight into what the most common issues are that are affecting your models. Okay. And you can deep dive into this, which I'll give you some insight into a little bit later. One area that is really interesting is one leg storage utilization. Again, providing you with some insight into how efficient you are in utilizing one leg storage, and potentially looking at the growth, whether you're increasing or decreasing your storage growth over time, and providing you with an estimated cost. Now, once again, this is a high-level overview, and you can go ahead and see much more information on your storage details by clicking in. Okay. When you do click in, again, you're greeted with some key insights and recommendations, what your top consumers are of your storage, what the growth is like, your efficiency, so on and so forth. Okay. If you did want to go in and see some more details, then you can also load up for each of these different workspaces a bit more of a comprehensive look at your storage trends. Okay, so for example, we're looking at the workspace lab 6 here in our environment. We can see our current storage, how much of that is billable, the current cost, growth rate, and some more detailed trend analysis over time, storage by workload, storage breakdown by type, and then which items are actually stored in that workspace as well. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and click back out of this screen and back out to the subscreen. Now, again, I know I'm showing you quite a huge amount of information, so please just feel free to stop me or ask me to dive in on any point that you would like me to. We then take a look, and Pragati, this might have been the same for you in your experience as well, especially in enterprise organizations. It's very difficult to keep an eye on how, let's call them citizen developers, are building out DAX, whether they're adhering to the standards within the organization. So if you set formatting standards, if you try to define best practices not having DAX tables, for example, and if you try to limit dependencies, it's very difficult to ensure that that's actually being adhered to over time, over capacities, and across multiple domains. Well, now with FabOps, that's really simple. We're able to scan your whole environment, provide you with an overall health score. So this current environment has 32.6 out of 100. We're able to tell you the complexity of your DAX across your whole estate, the average amount of DAX tables you have in your environment, the total amount of measures, and also the dependency depth, so max dependency depth. So how many layers of DAX calculations or measures that you have referencing other DAX measures or calculations. Again, I'm just going to gloss over some of these points here in an effort to get to some of the other pages as part of this session as well. So we start to take a look at your semantic model refreshes over time as well, really showing you the total amount of refreshes and your success rate during that period as well. Now within this visual, we're also able to show you your data set growth over time. And if you do have any errors, error spikes that are happening in your business, you can also start to see that here. And so you can see that we had a period where we had quite a lot of errors, and we've then been able to stabilize pretty consistently off the back of that issue. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, one of the most powerful elements of FabOps is not just the fact that we're presenting you with what's happening across your estate, but we're also providing you with information, insights, and recommendations on how you can take action to make your environment safer, securer, and more performant. So in this section here, we actually surface quick wins. So these are high impact, low effort optimization opportunities. Okay. So the vast majority in this demo environment really revolve around consolidating duplicate data sets. Okay. We provide you with whether we think it's medium, low, or high impact, and whether we think it's medium, low, or high effort. Okay. You can see some more details. We'll have that coming in the future, and you can also kick off and start each of these quick wins if you would like to. Okay. Now, this then leads us into, as I mentioned earlier, our AI-powered recommendations. Now, with artificial intelligence, hallucinating and being very much context driven, we also give you a confidence rating in regards to how accurate we believe the recommendations being surfaced here are. Okay, and in this scenario, we can see that we have 5 recommendations where we have 120% confidence across the 10 data sources that are being utilized. Now, you'll see that each of these align back to those categories we saw earlier: performance, governance, quality, so on and so forth. And you'll see here that because our refresh rate is, for example, 44.2%, we need to focus on fixing those 17 failing refreshes. We provide you with a timeline, which in this scenario is 1 to 2 weeks, and what we feel is the effort required to resolve this issue. Okay. We tell you where the source of this recommendation has come from, and it's based on rules. And this particular recommendation, we have a 90% confidence it's accurate. Now, if you were to hit the drop-down button and just go ahead and view details, then you'd be given the specific actions you need to take, what we expect the benefits to be from taking these actions, and then the success metrics that you can actually use to prove that this has actually worked as well. Okay. And that brings us to the end of the FabOps home screen. Okay, so as you can see, huge amounts of information being surfaced. Now let's start to dive into that in a bit more detail. And I'm going to take a look at our governance page. I'm going to go through this because, as you can see at the top here, we have a vast amount of pages to get through in today's session. So unless there's any key points that you want me to focus in on, then I'll just continue through this. So you'll now notice that the FabOps score is the hero on every page. It means that it's static. So when you do change, you start to navigate through the menus in FabOps, this will always be your starting point on the page. Okay. By scrolling down, we're now taking a look at governance. And governance in this environment really revolves around your best practice analysis, scores and results, and then also your Git integration and your domain integration within Fabric as well. Okay. As you should be quite familiar with, we start to give you a recommendation. So for this environment, we need to be enabling Git and assigning domains to help us improve our governance score. For Fabric admins, you can get a quick overview in regards to how information is being shared from your environment. And for us, we can see that it's 100% by link. We can also see how many of our tenant settings are actually enabled against the total amount of settings that exist for compliance. And then we can see that Git integration. So how many Git connections do we have? How many workspaces are connected? And what's that coverage over our whole Fabric estate? And then in the tabular view in this page, you can start to see all of your best practice analysis results. So if we wanted to look at just all of our errors, and we just wanted to look at those that were affecting performance, for example, and that's a great choice. We don't have any errors that are being surfaced here for performance. Let me go ahead and change this to all severities. We'll go to performance because these are just warnings. And then you can see all of your errors, your warnings for performance that are being surfaced here, which workspace they're against and which object they're against as well. Okay. And again, if you just wanted to go down to a singular workspace, then again, you can go ahead and do that just to start to take a look at what's actually happening under the hood. Okay. Now, if I go across to the performance tab, okay. Now this really focuses in on your semantic model refresh performance. We do have some modules that are coming in the near future, which focus in a bit more on Spark performance and the data engineering aspects, and potentially even report performance in the future as well. But here, what we're starting to showcase is, again, across your whole Fabric estate, what your success rate is for your refreshes, how long on an average those refreshes are actually taken, and what's your failure rate, and then providing you with a bucket, a bucketing-based system of how long your refreshes are actually taking. So again, for me, having worked with many Fabric admins globally, it's very difficult for them to understand in their environment, especially when they have different departments. So for example, marketing, etc., that are building out their own reports, where the blockages are coming from. So by being able to see very quickly that, for example, they have 20 reports that are taking over 2 hours, or sorry, 20 semantic models that are taking over 2 hours to refresh, they can go ahead, look at the refresh performance details in a tabular view, see those that maybe have completed. They can then go ahead and sort those by durations. I'm going to click greater than 30 minutes, even though we don't have any that are greater than 30 minutes currently. If you did, they would showcase here. And then that gives you a really quick targeted set of semantic models or reports to be able to highlight that you need to take a little bit more of a deep dive into what could be causing those refresh issues. Are they candidates for incremental refreshes, for example, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sorry to interrupt you, Leon. I think this one of this comment came from Jude, and I think it's kind of very relevant to what you are already talking. I know just before this you showed the item level analysis and details. So I think Jude London has commented that perhaps artifacts not in a Git repo, Fabric, or DevOps might be good to know as well. So do you have any details on that, whether you guys will be bringing that soon or?
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? So my understanding of that is that whilst we're telling you, if I go back to the governance screen, so we're referring to the Git integration here. So whilst we're telling you that you have 5 Git connections, 8 connected workspaces, what you would like to be able to see is just a list of those that don't have Git connected. Is that correct?
Maybe, but I think my understanding is more around when you showed the item level analysis. I think, like for example, if you scroll to the bottom, or if you go to I think this is more around the severity. Did we saw it in the previous screen? Oh, yes. He said yes. Okay. I thought he wanted an item level flag whether they are Git integrated or not. But yeah, makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. And as I go through this, we may be able to answer your question. But I think it's great feedback, right? Is that because FabOps surfaces quite a huge amount of information, we really need to understand what organizations want to see, what's going to really move the needle for them, so to speak. And typically in the work we've been doing with these organizations, they don't want to go and wave a stick around and beat everybody across the business, but they want to be able to highlight key governance issue, key performance issues very, very quickly, and then put in place plans to reconcile and be able to show the business they've actually been able to drive value off the back of that. And that's where we're gearing a lot more of the FabOps developments to. So I'll make a note of that as well, Jude. Great point to bring up.
Thank you. Thanks, Leon.
Perfect, thank you. So again, in FabOps, that's a really quick and easy way. If you do want to understand where you can have some quick wins and identify key performance issues across your Fabric estate, this is the area to do so, which is great. Now, I'll get to one of my favorite screens and one that gets the most interest because it's around costs in Fabric. Okay. Now, what we're able to do here, and I'll just scroll past the FabOps score again because you're familiar with it now, is we're able to show you a total estimated monthly cost of your your Fabric environment, the total amount of CUs you're actually consuming, how many capacities you have, your average daily CUs, and then break that down between each of the capacities that you actually have in your environment. We're able to show you whether they're actually being utilized as well, and I'll go into a bit more detail around that you can start to see here. So we can see that out of each of the capacities that we are currently using, we have a singular F8 which is highly utilized, as opposed to the F2s and another F8 that we have in this environment. So again, really quick at a glance information in regards to how much your Fabric capacities are costing you and how you're utilizing them as well. Okay. Now, on that note, I will just make you aware that I'm fully aware that organizations have the ability to be pay as you go, to have a reserved instance pricing, have the ability to have SKUs which are set in different regions, which then have an effect on pricing, and also may have some preferential pricing or discounts available. To combat this within FabOps, we actually give you the ability to set your own pricing for each of your capacities, so that the actual costs that you're seeing reflected here will be factual to your environment. So it's not a one size fits all that you're seeing here as well. Okay. Now, just as we go into our consumption trends visual, now what this does, if I just go, let's take a look at the last 60 days where we have data. Now, this gives us a really quick and, in my opinion, easy to read view of how we're consuming CU on a daily basis in our environment. So the green dotted line is actually your capacity limit. Then we have the orange dotted line, which is your 80% warning of consumption. And anything that sits below that is actually obviously lower than your 80% of consumption. So if we go back just again slightly, you can see here that we've had some periods of spikes where we've gone significantly over our capacity maximum level, and then we've been able to then resolve that over time here as well. Okay. Now, if we had any cost optimization or saving opportunities, they would be highlighted here as insights and recommendations. And then we're able to go into a tabular view. Now, what's really great about this tabular view is we're able to give you your CU consumption and the amount of operations being utilized by each workspace, okay? And then we can tell you your top items. So for example, machine learning and SQL DB are utilizing the vast majority in this particular workspace. But as we scroll down, we're then able to give you item level consumption analysis. So warehouses, data sets, lake houses, etc., but also able to provide you estimated daily costs and estimated monthly costs alongside those objects as well, okay? Which is a massive step forward. Now, what we've also been able to do, again, if we just scroll down slightly here, is introduce FinOps. Now, some of you may or may not be familiar with FinOps, but if you imagine a scenario where you are sharing Fabric capacities and Fabric objects and usage across an organization, so let's say, for example, marketing, finance, HR, and sales are all using the same Fabric environment, but you want to split costs between those departments so you can charge back effectively. Well, you have the ability to tag items. So, for example, notebooks, lakehouses, etc., to specific tags. So, in this scenario, we have 3 items that we've tagged to finance, which will be able to give you an overall monthly cost, the amount of CUs they're using, and the summary. So you can start to introduce that chargeback functionality that we've seen across lots and lots and lots of organizations. Okay. Then if I just go ahead and move on to modernization, and apologies, I know I'm going through this very, very quickly, but there's a huge amount to get through in a short space of time. Now, the key for modernization is those of you that have come from a Power BI background will know that with the birth of Fabric, you were introduced to a lot more components or workloads than were previously available to you within Power BI. Concepts like lakehouses, real-time intelligence, data engineering pipelines, and also the introduction of Copilot as well. Now, for us, it's very difficult for organizations to actually understand, A, how many people are adopting these new features within Fabric, and in some scenarios, it's very difficult to understand how they should be adopting these new features in Fabric coming from a Power BI background. So we're able to give you an overall adoption score of these new features and how many of them you actually have in your environment. But importantly, we're also able to give you a personalized modernization roadmap of how you can start to adopt these new features. So for example, we're being suggested here that by introducing Direct Lake into our environment, we should be able to see a high impact and it should be a high priority piece for us to move forward with. Similarly to moving some of our data pipelines into Fabric Data Factory and also starting to utilize real-time intelligence. Okay. Now, we also provide you detailed insight in regards to Copilot usage. So organizations that are paying for Copilot, for example, what's your ROI? How do you know that your staff are actually utilizing it? Well, we show you that directly within FabOps. We show you how many interactions, how many active users, the success rate of actually getting a response from Copilot, average daily usage, so on and so forth. And then we show you some trending around that and your top users and top workspaces that are being interacted with Copilot as well. Okay. Running out of breath, here's so much to get through. Let's go ahead and dive on to lineage. Now, I love the lineage view, and I really see what myself and the team are building out here at Onyx and some of the capabilities that are going to come in the future. Now, again, if you imagine a scenario where you have multiple Fabric capacities or even just an individual Fabric capacity, being able to understand very quickly how many domains you have, how many reports, how many semantic models, how they all hang together is very, very, very tricky. Okay? Now, we give you 2 views. We give you a tree view and we give you a decomposition view. Now, your tree view is your familiar Windows or Mac folder structure, where you're starting off at your capacity level, you're then going down to your domain level, you're then going down to your workspace level, and then you're then going down to see the items that exist within your workspace. And if you want to see some additional information, you can go ahead and view. So in this scenario, we can see how many items are certified, promoted, and who they were created by and when. And my favorite is actually the decomposition view. So again, you're able to see at a glance how many domains you have, how many workspaces, explode that out so we can see that we actually have 554 unassigned workspaces. We can go ahead and explode that out. So none of these workspaces are connected to a domain currently. Let's go ahead and go to this workspace. We can then start to see all of the objects that exist in this workspace And for example, if we were to take a look at the machine learning experiments that exist in the workspace, we can see that it was actually myself experimenting with some machine learning experiments within this workspace as well. So really quick, really powerful at a glance way to start to see how everything is hanging together in your Fabric environment. Okay. Now, just get to the last two screens. This might be a little bit to Jude's point earlier in regards to how you're able to see tabular information at a glance in your Fabric estate. So we give you the Data Explorer. Now this enables you to choose from each of these objects. So if I just go to, let's just go to reports for the sake of this demo. We're able to then choose all of the reports data, and what we're being returned is a tabular overview of all of the reports and the metadata that exists with them. So we can see, for example, who created the report, when it was created, the dataset ID, if it's been embedded anywhere in the URL, when it was last modified, any flags that are set against it, sensitivity, subscriptions, so on and so forth. And you can also, if you need to, export this to CSV. And so what this does is it gives you a really, really quick way to audit your environment. And again, if you do need to get any of that rich metadata, again, very efficiently and quickly, you can do so here. Now, a demo wouldn't be a demo in today's day and age without going through some AI. So I'm going to give you a very, very brief overview of the FabOps AI Assistant. Now, what makes the FabOps AI Assistant great is that it's contextually aware of your Fabric environment. And the reason that we built this is to really replace ourselves, to be honest. So you don't have to get on the phone to a consultant like me. You can get the first line of support and information that you need in your Fabric environment directly here. So some of you that were paying a lot of attention earlier may have realized that we were recommended to implement Direct Lake. So let's pretend I don't know what Direct Lake is. So what is Direct Lake and how can it benefit our Fabric environment? Let's go ahead and fire that off to our FabOps Assistant. As I mentioned, it would just take some time to go through your Fabric environment, think about how Direct Lake as a solution can support you, and it will provide you that information. Okay? So it gives you the information on what is Direct Lake, what the benefits of Direct Lake are, and your recommendations for implementation. Now, as I mentioned before, it takes into account your environment. So we're seeing here that it's seeing that our governance score is 18.7 out of 100. It's seeing that we currently only have a 44.2% refresh success rate. And then we can also, if this was me asking the question, I would be saying, okay, that's great, but what are the risks for us implementing Direct Lake and how to mitigate these risks? Excellent. We'll fire that off to the AI. And it's always great to understand that these features are going to benefit us, but there could also be a downside that we need to be aware of. Now, without having to go and read through chapter and verse of Microsoft documentation or use support hours with a consultant like myself, you can get at least your first-time information of what you need to be aware of. Again, data quality issues, increased complexity, etc., and how you can then mitigate some of those areas moving forward as well, all without having to leave the FabOps environment. Okay. Now, I will just give a very, very brief overview of the back end. Again, way too much to get through in today's session, but we also do give you an administration backend to FabOps where you have page level security. So for example, if you just want somebody in your organization to only be able to see governance or Explorer and none of the other pages, you can set that. You can invite your own users. You don't have to come back to us to add new users to your environment. And again, just a couple of those key features and functionality that I called out earlier. So in regards to your workspaces, you can include or exclude workspaces in FabOps directly here. You might decide you don't want to use any personal workspaces within Fabric. You may also decide that when new workspaces are created, you don't want them to be automatically added to FabOps. Again, that's something that you can handle here. Okay. You also have access, I just mentioned that one in regards to automatically including or excluding. And you can also set those workspace groups that I spoke about earlier. So if you wanted to have a production set of groups for the workspaces, test set of groups, so on and so forth, you can manage that yourselves here. And you can also set those items tags that I mentioned earlier. So if you want to have just certain workspaces, certain data sets, certain data warehouses, lake houses, etc., attributed to a different department, you can go ahead and do so here as well. Okay. Now, as you would imagine, we give you access to alerting and notifications as well. So you can go ahead and set those and configure those within the backend. As I mentioned before, you can turn off or on some of those FabOps scoring and set the weights to each of those directly in the backend as well. Again, that goes into some more detail around the email alerting. You can set your SKU pricing. Very interestingly as well, we also give you access to be able to be notified whenever there is a Microsoft outage in your region, okay, whether this is for Fabric or for Power BI. Too often, I've spoken with customers that don't know there's an issue with Fabric or with Power BI until the business is complaining that there's an issue. So we actually allow you to be alerted on whether there's a surface outage or whether there's degraded performance, and you can choose either single or multiple regions within the backend as well and go ahead and be alerted, not only when there is an outage, but also when the outage is resolved as well. That means you can proactively let the business know that's happening as well. Okay. I'll get onto our reporting in a moment. I guess the only other point to really raise here is that everything that you do within FabOps is logged as well. So you have full auditable history of any actions that are taken in this environment, and you can export and slice and dice that as needed. Okay. Now, Pragati, I know we're getting to the last few minutes of the session, and I will want to leave a little bit of time for any questions. I will just go back.
I don't see any questions, but there's a comment that came from Vivek Sri Gopal Trivedi. He said, thanks a lot for sharing this valuable information. And yeah, so that's what I see for now. But yeah, we'll see if we get more questions to the end of the session. Leon.
Amazing. No problem at all. That's fine by me. So let's just go into some of the email and alerts that are available within FabOps, okay? So I'll be starting on the left-hand side. Now, what you're seeing is the service outage alert that I mentioned earlier, okay? Now, as you can see, I prefer dark mode, which is why all of these are in black. If you prefer light mode, they would be in your traditional light coloring for Outlook and for Teams, okay? Now, what's happening is here, we're being made aware that there is the Microsoft Fabric services are experiencing an issue. We're going to be told every 6 hours that there's an issue until it's actually resolved. And we can currently see that this is a global issue. And we're also alerting you to what the potential impact could be in your environment, okay? So this could be affecting your dashboards and reports, your pipelines, and your API integration and disruptions. You then have the ability to check the status directly with Microsoft, or you can go into FabOps and get an update on the status directly there. We then provide you with recommended actions. So to go and notify your team that there could be potential service disruptions, potentially looking to postpone critical data refreshes, continue to monitor the page, and then document any impacts that you may have for incident reporting directly to Microsoft or internally. Okay. Now, we also give you built-in reporting within FabOps. So you have either a weekly or bi-weekly digest where you're able to see if you're actually improving your scores. You're able to see any quick wins that you've achieved and any new risks that have been detected. And we're also able to give you some key performance metrics. So if you have been able to reduce your Fabric spend, if you've been able to improve your refresh success, And if you would be able to improve, or if your security score had decreased, that would be surfaced here. Okay. And then we also give you an overview of any top issues that require attention. And again, this is really a great report for managers, just to be able to have a quick overview of what's actually happening in your Fabric estate, okay, on a weekly basis. We then have more of an executive-based report that you're seeing here. Now, this is actually a quarterly compliance report. I'm a bit disappointed I won't have time to show you the whole report today. It's approximately 15 to 18 pages, comprehensive overview of your Fabric readiness score and the analysis around it, your capacity performance metrics, security and compliance assessment, your cost optimization insights, and governance and best practices reviews, and then also any trends between the current quarter and the previous quarter as well. The reports are retained for 2 years in the FabOps portal for your reference, and you can also generate historic reports if you need to as well. And then what you're seeing here on the right-hand side, finally, is just an insight into what your team's notification looks like within FabOps as well. So this is just your daily digest from FabOps into Teams on a daily basis. So again, giving you some of that key insight, highlight any highlights and any action areas that require any work as well. So just going to end with a proven path to control. So we were able to, one of our global customers, so Nico Boats, over the data platform manager over in South Africa of Montego Pet Nutrition, he was able to see a 63% governance efficiency improvement, able to achieve 99.9% refresh reliability. And the great thing about FabOps is it's always on in the background, acting like a sentinel across your whole Fabric estate as well. Okay. Now, for those of you that have joined us for today's session, I know there's been a huge amount to get through, but we would love to be able to offer you an exclusive 1-month free trial for your organizations. So if that's something that's of interest to you, then go ahead and scan the QR code on the left-hand side here. It's only going to be valid for the next 24 hours. So if it is something that you would like to be able to get access to, then please do go ahead and scan that. And Pragati, I'll also just give you the link to this to be able to put into the chat as well. Sorry, multitasking here. So if you, for any reason, are unable to scan the QR code, then please feel free to click that link. As I mentioned, it's only available for 24 hours. And if that's not something that's of interest to you, then we also have a free white paper available for you. So this is our Microsoft Fabric Return on Investment Accelerator, which you're able to scan this QR code in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and that will be available for you as a free download following today's session. Right, Pragati, I'm out of breath. We've got 90 seconds left. And that was it.
No, this was, as you were keep saying it multiple times during your session, this was a lot of information, but thanks for showing this, Leon. I mean, I don't see any questions or comments, but I would like to ask something if that's okay. Absolutely. I know earlier, I think in the starting, I had that question whether this is tenant level. Definitely, this is a tenant level analysis that FabOps does, right? So is there also a view where I can directly select capacity?
In what sense? So you have.
So, for example, within my tenancy, I have got 4 capacities, but I want to run analysis just for a single capacity because I didn't see a capacity level filter anywhere. Maybe because you were just showing one capacity, maybe I could have missed it. So is there?
In this version of FabOps we have currently available, your filtering starts at your workspace level. So to achieve a capacity level split, you would have to define the workspaces into categories, into groups. To each of those groups to achieve that.
Okay. Or maybe if I've got domains, then I can select the individual domains within the capacity and then make it work that way. Okay. No, that's fine. I just wanted to, because sometimes it happens, you just want to, monitor a particular capacity. So how do I do that? Like that was my, question, but yeah, that makes sense. That's absolutely fine. And also Actually, I should first point out few things that I loved about the tool. The first thing that you showed was the quick wins section, which I really loved because it kind of shows you like what actions can really help you, improve things currently. So that quick win section was amazing. Then followed by it was the lineage view. Oh, that was amazing. I just loved it because it kind of gives you a folder structure and I know what's within what. And I mean, somehow I find navigating folder structures pretty easy when it is, shown in a view like you showed, like in a tree structure, right? So that was another thing that I loved about the tool. Then obviously FabOps AI assistant. I honestly don't trust AIs that much, but still, something built within the same tool helps a lot because I love that thing where everything is within a single hood, right? That's why I love Fabric. That's why I love this tool. Like within the same tool, I have got that capability. I really don't have to go anywhere else to find things. So that's why I like that assistant and also that page level security. That can make things really, I don't know, in a way controlled within the environment, like who I can choose people who I want to see what basically. So that was pretty good. I mean, I love that. Um, and then one question that I wanted to ask was, I remember that you showed a view where we had recommended actions against, like say the analysis that we saw, like for
Yeah.
example, say if my semantic model is having some issues and then there were some recommended actions, and you said that under the hood there is a AI based rules that give you that recommended action. So my question was, like, I'm sure those rules are configured currently within the tool. Are those rules configurable? Can we change them while using the tool, or no, they are like a set of rules that we just take it as part of the tool?
No, absolutely. Great question. So we use best practice analyzer as the basis for setting those rules. So as you're aware,
Mhm.
Pragati, maybe some of the listeners aren't aware, you have customization over that rule set. So we
Yeah,
give you
yeah.
the ability to be able to define that. As I
Mhm.
mentioned, we also have fine-tuned or trained a model, an
Mhm.
artificial intelligence model based on our internal documentation at Onyx and some of the engagements that we've done over time, and also on that rule set. And that's why we give you a confidence score as well. So if we
Okay.
suggest that is based on the rules that we're surfacing, that recommendation, and that we're 90% confident that that's going to
Mhm.
drive value for you, then that's what's
Yeah.
being presented. If we're not and it's 10%, then obviously there's a decision and discussion to be had internally before taking on any of that.
Okay. No, that makes sense because yeah, that came to my mind because I understand like wherever we have got this best practice analyzer built within other external tools, you have a capability to add rules. But I was thinking from other point of view, like for example, there were some recommendations against governance, right? So like if there is a ML model running besides it and giving us that recommendation, how does that work? Can we set up some rules for it, based on some best practices that we want to, fetch within the tool, like okay, governance should follow like say these 10 things at least, and then use that for recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And probably one area I didn't touch on, and I'll just mention it very briefly now, is that FabOps is deployed in two different ways. One is as a managed service, which means that we host FabOps for you and handle all of the back end, the models, etc.
Hmm.
And we get access to the metadata in your environment via external data share within Fabric.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
other is we deploy to your tenant. So you take ownership, or at least management ownership of everything that holds FabOps together in the back end and those
Hmm.
components. And then we will then ship any updates to your environment. So with
Okay.
that, you're then able to start to build off the back of it. One point to bear in mind is in the future, we are looking to give API access to FabOps as well. So it could be integrated or built on top of in organizations' own internal solutions as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think overall I just love this session because as you started the session, you literally touched a few things. Like there is so much within the Fabric environment. You have got capacity metrics, you have got FUM, you have got cost analysis. There's so much going on there. But having everything within a single tool can really help sometimes. And also, like some of the features that I really loved about the tool I said earlier, they were really good because it's sometimes, just hard to understand what actions to take when so much is going on within the environment. And like we just saw, like one capacity when there are multiple capacities, and then more workspaces, then it can go more, it can become a big mess. So
Absolutely.
yeah. And I think everyone, this is like a really exclusive offer for everyone for 1 month trial. And I mean, just scan the QR code, or check the link that I have put in the comments. It's a amazing opportunity to try this tool, I guess. So definitely use it.
Oh, thank you, Pragati. It's very kind of you.
And I don't think we have got any more comments or questions in the chat. So I guess maybe we can wrap for the day. But everyone, thanks for joining us. And also there was a link I pasted for a feedback. So do give us the feedback. It will just help us, and help us bring the right content to you. Um, yeah. Have a great evening. Anything, Leon?
No, thank you very much, Pragati, for hosting me as well. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.